Man, I'm really excited about what God's doing in our church, you guys. It sounds odd, but I've been looking forward to this fall for about a year since last fall. There's just something I could sense it. Even going to two services around Easter time instead of fall time, it was very intentional. Even though attendance goes down in the summer, it's preparing for fall. We didn't want to go to two services in the fall and not be ready for the people that God was going to bring to our church. We said, hey, I actually want to go to two services before that, so we have all summer to figure it out, to learn, to grow our serve teams, to recruit new people. And now we're ready. Come on, our church is ready. And it was even encouraging on our welcome home lunch last week. We had around 30 people show up that are brand new to our church. I said, hey, I want to learn more and I want to commit. I want to be a part of this. And God's growing this house. And it's cool. God adds, this is how it works because it's summer in Minnesota. Come on, it's like our one time. We all leave every weekend. And overall attendance goes down, but the visitor counts are always really, really high. And all of a sudden fall hits and you're like, whoa, where'd all these people come from? Because they've been being added all summer and we're ready. And it's going to start this Friday night. And I believe so strongly this is another one of those visions that Renee and I have had for a long time. This is a part of being a lead pastor. I'm seeing things and praying for things and believing for things that haven't happened yet. It's a part of casting that vision out, and believe it or not, the weekend is not an event. It is a part of the vision of this house. We do not want to be a church that moves forward without hearing from God. We do not want to step in the wrong directions. So we're going to carve out a weekend, and we're going to hear from heaven, and we're going to spend time in his presence. And I'm telling you, it is going to be a moment that you do not want to miss on Friday night. You got plans? Cancel them. Shift it. Make it a priority. One Friday night. We don't ask for Friday nights. We don't do that. Come on, we honor your schedule. We're launching tables, and it's once a month. It's not every single week. We understand that you're busy, but there are moments where, as a pastor, I'm asking, hey, commit to this. Commit to Friday night. Show up. Be in the room. Be in the room. We're not streaming it online. It's not an online thing. This is an in-the-room thing. There are moments where you need to not forsake the gathering together of the saints, as some people have done. You show up. So it's not going to be streamed. If you're watching online, you got to be here. You got to be here. And we got a special speaker. I'm just to be honest, Brendan Cormier is one of my favorite, the best moments I've had in the presence of God have happened when he's preaching. And even for myself, as a grown adult, there's just something, God's hand is on his life. He planted his church about 2 years ago, and it just exploded in Colorado Springs. And there are well over 1,000 people. They're buying an old Macy's 2 years in. They're buying a Macy's building. And it's not just because God's hand is on him. And he's a praying man. He's spending time. He's already got a word. He's praying for that night. He's coming in ready. And so we need to do the same and just have our hearts postured to receive from God. And it's going to be powerful. So we'll see you Friday night. It's going to be good. Anyways, I got to preach. I'm talking about anything and everything, but I got to get to Book of Jonah, week 4, chapter 4. And this will be the last week of this series. And I've really enjoyed teaching this. And there are moments where we really need to just dive into certain books. I love doing it. It's an approach to the text that I think is really, really helpful. And so we're going to read almost all of Jonah chapter 4. We read the first couple verses just to sort of bookend last week's message. But again, when we're in a teaching series, especially in the book of a Bible, make sure to follow along. If you missed one, catch up because you're going to see the full picture. It's so vital that you stay caught up when we're in these going chapter to chapter. So we're in Jonah chapter 4. And at the beginning of this story, we saw the story start with Jonah. And he's going to go from this moment where he was fleeing from God. He was fleeing from the face of God. And now at the end of the story, we're going to see him actually go from fleeing from the face of God to flying in the face of God. He's actually going to question God. He's actually going to challenge God. So if you're waiting for the moment where this story shifts and Jonah becomes the hero, it's just not going to happen. That's not how we're going to end this story. And that's not where the author ends it. And so we're going to dive into this text. And I'm going to start with verse 3 here. And again, he gave the bare minimum to the city of Nineveh. He traveled 1 day, not 3 days. He only gave a rushed message of Nineveh being overthrown. And now he left and he's angry with God because he doesn't see Nineveh being overthrown. And so in verse 3, Jonah actually says this to God. He says, "Now, Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live. But the Lord replied, is it right for you to be angry? Now, two things here in this first verse. First one being, here we see Jonah again. We're going to see his drama go through the roof in this chapter, okay? This dude's dramatic. He's up in his feels right now and be like, this is extreme. That's like a suicidal statement. But the reality is he says this over and over again. He's saying it to dramatize his point. He's trying to create sort of this extreme version to get God's sympathy. And have you ever had somebody say something extra extreme to try to elicit sympathy? And you know they're just trying to make it sound so bad to get sympathy. But God doesn't immediately show sympathy. What does he do? God brings a question. And you see in this moment, come on, parents in the room, you know this. He's parenting here, okay? God the Father is in the building. He is parenting. And he just asks a question. He doesn't tell him anything. Hey, Jonah, is it right for you to be this angry? Like, are you justified in this anger? And again, Jonah's anger is even further confirmation that he only brought the message of wrath, not the full message of repentance. So God asks him this question. Is it right for you to be angry? You want me to be angry. You wanted me to bring wrath. You only told a story of wrath. You wanted me to show up with wrath. Is it right for you to be angry? And Jonah, he'd actually gone out and he sat down at a place east of the city. It's also interesting because by ancient tradition, a prophet whose message had been accepted would have been a man of honor. And he actually would have been offered the best that Nineveh had. The best food, the best places to stay. He would have been treated like royalty. They would have rolled out the red carpet for him. But this is further proof of Jonah's prejudice. If last week you were like, Pastor Sam, I just don't know. Jonah, come on, he's a hero of the Bible. He would not be a man of prejudice. How could one of God's people have prejudice against anybody else? That's not true. Here's further proof of it. He's like, I don't want anything that you would offer me, Nineveh. And so I'm actually going to leave. I'm going to reject any tradition that you have to bless me. And I'm actually going to go east of the city. And there, he made himself a shelter, sat in its shade, and waited to see what would happen to the city. And this is reflective of Abraham's moment watching Sodom. Then the Lord God provided a leafy plant and made it grow up over Jonah to give shade for his head to ease his discomfort. Now this is really interesting. Did you catch this? Jonah made a shelter for shade. So if he made a shelter for shade, why does God need to grow a shade plant to cover him? What this means is Jonah's going full Eeyore, right? He's building a shelter, and he's intentionally doing it poorly. Have you ever seen somebody who's dramatic and uncomfortable, and they refuse to get comfortable because then they don't get as much attention? You ever seen this? So here he starts to construct out of little sticks, I imagine, this little crappy, terrible shelter. And here he is, he's sitting under it, and he's just going, woe is me, right? And he's just dramatic. Like, picture it. Picture the kid that's just being dramatic, and he's going, I want to stay dramatic. And he's under this shelter. And God goes, man, that you couldn't even build the shelter right. I'm going to give you a plant. And so this plant actually grows up. And I'm going to use this tree. This is going to be my plant. This is my plant. So this plant grows up. And so here's little Eeyore Jonah down here feeling, woe is me, watching for the destruction of his people. And he's in the sun, and he's blistering, and he's hot. And all of a sudden, this little plant starts to grow up over him. And the funny thing about Jonah and this plant is it's the first time that he loves anything in the entire book. And he starts to go, ooh, I like this plant. I like this plant. This plant's giving me shade. It's giving me comfort. And we actually see that this shade actually eases his discomfort. And what does it say? It says, and Jonah was very happy about the plant. You ever had something come and you're just happy about it and you just get to tuck in? And he's hiding there in the shade of this plant, in the shade of this tree. And for the first time, Jonah's happy. Why? Because this dude is petty. He's petty. He's petty about his plant. He's petty about his comfort. And here he's starting to feel happy. But at dawn the next day, God provided a worm. I love this word. Did God bring? No, he provided. It was provision that the worm came. What an interesting choice of words. The worm comes, which chewed the plant and it withered. When the sun rose, God also provided a scorching east wind. Isn't it interesting to think that God could provide discomfort? That sort of wrecks our theology a little bit sometimes. Wait, hold on. God provided something, but why would, that couldn't be God. God gave him the plant. God is a good giver. And Jonah liked that plant. He was happy about that plant. The plant would have been from the gourd family. It would have had big leaves, and maybe he was hoping that it would actually produce some gourds that he could eat, and he liked this plant. What do you mean? What do you mean God provided a worm? That's discomfort. That's uncomfortable. God couldn't have provided, but it says it right there in the text. And then what ends up happening is this east wind starts to create this moment where the sun blazes on Jonah's head, so much so that he grew faint. And what did he want to do again? He wanted to, come on 11 a.m., be with me here. He wanted to. 9:30 wins already. We're just like 20 minutes in. You already lost. It would be better for me to die than to live. But God said to Jonah, is it right for you to be angry about the plant? Are you seeing a trend here? God had to speak twice. Do you remember another moment in this book where he had to speak twice? The word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time after being spat out of the whale. And here God has to do it again. He's like, Jonah, you're not getting it. Is it right for you to be angry about the plant? And what does he say? It is. This is one of the most defiant moments in all of Scripture. Do you know this? He flat out disagrees openly with God. And he goes, it is. I am justified because my discomfort has left me. I was comforted, and now I am justified because I'm discomfort. And he said, I'm so angry. Here it is again. I wish I were. Oh, the drama. But the Lord said, you have been concerned about this plant, though you did not tend it or make it grow. It sprang up overnight and died overnight. And should I not have concern for the great city of Nineveh? And this is, just so you guys know, this is the end of the whole thing here. This is so vital. Here's the lesson in all of it. Let's read it again. It sprang up overnight and died overnight. You did not tend it. You did not make it grow. You're concerned about the plant. Your focus is the plant. But I've got concern for the people of Nineveh, in which there are more than 120,000 people who cannot tell their right hand from their left, and also many animals. And here God is describing this lesson. He's saying, your focus has become consumed by your love for this plant. Is it right for you to be angry about the removal of the plant that you did nothing for? Is it right for you to be angry about that when you aren't even on board with my cause? When you're not even on board with the thing that I'm trying to do in the great city of Nineveh because you're prejudiced, because you're limited in your scope. And the reality is it's so easy for us to feel safe, to feel comfy, to relax, to sort of set in. And how many of you know when you find yourself getting really, really comfortable, you're only comfortable until you're not. You're only comfortable until something removes it. And it's a lot easier to be uncomfortable if you've never been comfortable, right? How many of you know you're like, I don't even want to test out the like crazy expensive beds. I don't even want to sleep on it. I don't even want to rest on it. I don't even want to go near it. I don't want to know what it feels like because I can't afford it. So I'm going to be just fine with my not very comfortable bed because it's what I can afford. I don't even want to experience a greater level of comfort. Sometimes we actually put price tags go higher and higher according to comfort. Luxury usually has to do with comfort. The nicer edition of the car, what do you have? Now you got heated seats. Oh, now you got cooled seats. Oh, now you got the massage seats in your car. Come on, I want a road trip on one of those massage seat chairs. And I want to go in. The comfort adds to that value. When we start to get exposed to it, we really like it. And then all of a sudden, we can begin to relax. Have you ever felt comfy? Have you ever felt like you're able to relax? Literally this week, we had a moment of false comfort, false safety, Renee and I. And we actually planned a date night, and we were going to go golfing for this date night, right? And then have you ever had a moment where your plans don't work because the radar comes and it's saying storms, and we're like, oh, no, storms. So we changed our plans. We're like, we're just going to do dinner. We're going to do this. And all day we had our plans changed because it was saying storm. And out of nowhere, the radar changes. Come on, weather people. I just don't understand how they get paid to be so wrong all the time. Like if I was this wrong that consistently, I should not earn a salary, right? But it's fine. It's fine. So we were planning according to the weather, changed on a dime, nothing on the radar, totally clear within the hour. And then all of a sudden there's 0% chance of rain. I'm like, babe, I come home, I go, babe, I think we could golf. I think we could do it. And Renee has this moment, right? And she's like, oh, but I was kind of excited for dinner. And she goes, let me just go and think. And I said, either way, we can golf or we'll just go to dinner. And I love my wife because I had a wife that went and thought. And all of a sudden she opens up the door, comes out of the bedroom, and she's in her golf attire. And she's like, I'm ready to go, babe. And I'm like, yes, we're going golfing, right? Come on, that is a good wife right there. And so we go golfing, and we're having a blast. We found a last-minute 9-hole tee time at the ponds, and we're having this date night, and we're having a blast, and we're getting pretty far into the course, and all of a sudden, how many of you know, have you ever had that moment where you start to be in denial of what the truth that's coming for you? And there's this huge black, dark cloud, and Renee's like, are we worried about that? And I'm like, no, look. It looks like it's moving away from us. It's moving away from us. We're fine. You know, you start to get the sprinkles, and she's like, are we worried? I'm like, no, we're fine. Let's keep moving. And so we keep moving. We're ignoring the signs. Even this guy who lived on this course, he drives by us, and he's like, hey, you know, do you guys see what's coming? You might want to get out of here. And I'm like, no, we're good, right? And we're at the furthest point from the clubhouse, and out of nowhere, right, this storm just hits. Like it blows in hard. It is a torrential downpour. And if you know anything about golf carts, they do not have sides, right? You only have the windshield, and then you got the back cover. And so I get real smart. I'm like, baby, if it came in this fast, it's going to leave just as quick, right? Like we're good. We're good. I'm like determined. And so I drive on this part of the course where there was this huge trees, and we tuck under these big trees, and we're facing the rain whipping at us, so we're staying dry. And all of a sudden, we start to feel kind of comfy, and we start to feel a little cozy, right? And all of a sudden, we start to feel safe. In a way, we kind of had our tree that was over us, and we're like, we're going to wait this out. It's going to be fine. And I felt really comfortable. Renee was still like, hey, babe, there's lightning, and like, should we get out of here? And I'm like, no, we're good. It's fine. And we're waiting it out. And all of a sudden, this huge wind picks up, and it starts blowing. And literally 20 feet on the trail, an entire tree just snap, and the whole thing falls. It goes, boom, 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 right on the trail. Literally 20 feet from us. Like with the tree line we're tucked into. And in that moment, how many of you know the comfort's gone? The safety is over. It's like, babe, we got to go right now. She's like, I told you that 20 minutes ago. Right, listen to your wives, husbands. You'll be a lot happier and safer. And so then we just start tearing off. But we are as far from the clubhouse as you can get. And this thing starts turning into an actual flood. The puddles are so deep. We're hitting these puddles. It's cascading over the golf cart, and it's flooding the engine. There's smoke coming out of the engine. We're just drenched, right? And we're just screaming, and it's hilarious. I thought it was amazing. How many know sometimes the date nights that go wrong are the best ones? You know what I mean? Like, I'll never forget it. And we had this moment where we thought, like, we had this, like, comfort and safety, and all of a sudden you're comfortable until you're not. And then all of a sudden we're soaked and we're drenched, and our discomfort motivated us. Our discomfort got us moving. And here's what's so interesting is God provided discomfort. Why? Because he wanted Jonah to be miserable? No, because he wanted to teach Jonah something. He provided discomfort so he could motivate Jonah about his cause. He provided discomfort to actually teach Jonah this lesson that he was being too hard-headed to get a hold of, to understand. And he made it so clear. This is one of the most crystal clear lessons we find in Scripture. God's going, your heart and your focus, it's on the wrong thing. You love to plant more than people. You loved the comfort that it brought more than my cause. And I think it's an interesting question to ask, and this is a paraphrase of something I read. But what happens when God's own people become an obstacle towards God's purposes? What happens when it's his people that are getting in the way of his purpose? And this is one of the tensions. The longer I serve God and the longer I work in church and been around this has been my vocation since I started interning when I was a senior in high school, and I've never looked back. It's been church. This has been what I do is building the house of God. And I've been around people from all different generations and backgrounds. And what I find, and I'm even finding in my own life, is if we're not careful, there's this really sort of basic arc to sort of a curve to a Christian walk of faith. We see that when people get saved, right? If there's anybody in the room that's newly saved and I say come on Friday night for a revival service, I didn't even need to tell you. Like, you're going to be here early. You're going to be at the front. You're going to be raising your hands because you are your proximity to what Jesus saved you from is so close. You're so aware of how much God moved in your life. And so your passion is high. Your love for him is high. Your awareness of his goodness is high. But then what ends up happening is we start to rid ourselves of what we would call, like, we sort of see it as like the big sins in our society. Like, oh, he's not a drunk anymore. Okay, that's good. Oh, they don't lash out in anger anymore. Oh, okay. Oh, they've stopped. They're not gossiping as much. Or, oh, they're not addicted to as much. Or all of a sudden these sort of big sins, and we start to get further and further away from the moment where we were convinced it was all God, and we start to give ourselves credit. And we start to think that we understand justice apart from God, that we know best, that we've got some things figured out. And this is what's happening with Jonah. He'd been serving God long enough that he was willing to, straight to God's face, challenge what God saw as justice. And he goes, no, justice for the Ninevites is destruction. That's it. End of story. That's what I'm here for. I'm watching. I want the Abraham moment. I want that. I want that story. That's how you should react, God. And yes, I am justified in my anger of my comfort leaving. You killing that plant, I am justified. He had created his own justice. And so sometimes what we want to do is, right, it's very easy for us to say, well, I would never go as far as Jonah. I'll just be honest with you guys. I felt tempted at times to discern what's right and wrong. I've sometimes gotten caught up in my holiness or my ability and I've started to give myself too much credit at times. So I wonder if you're willing to make the same admission. Are there times where we start to give ourselves too much credit? Where we start to feel like we are who we are because of ourselves and our good deeds and our actions? But that's why we love the message of Jesus. We're not saved by our good deeds. They're not what saves us. They're not what justifies us. It's God's undeserved, unmerited grace and favor. And as we walk that out, good deeds are going to follow. Good things are going to follow, but you don't get that credit. We're not to be able to boast. We're supposed to live in a way that we can't even boast. But what happens when God's own people become an obstacle towards God's purposes, where they're so far along in that bell curve that they're actually kind of standing in the way of what he's trying to do to reach the one. The 99 all of a sudden becomes an obstacle in getting to the one. The 99 all of a sudden becomes a problem. Why do you think on a Friday night we're getting filled up, but then on Saturday morning we're going to go pour out? It's because I never want to get a move of God and keep it to myself. I firmly believe that the Holy Spirit's going to move in my life. It's so that I can pour out to other people, so I can help people, so I can love people. And that's the message that we're seeing in this. And so God begins to show through an illustration this plant. He begins to show what's wrong with Jonah through this plant. He begins to show what's wrong to us, you, right in your seat. Begins to teach us what the wrong perspective is through this plant. What do we do with the unmerited, undeserved favor from God when he brings us things? When he brings us, he blesses us, and he's a good giver. God is a great gift giver. And he wants to provide great things for you. For example, he says that he's a good giver, and he'll give the Holy Spirit to those who ask. But are you willing to even go through the discomfort of showing up on Friday night? Oh, but Pastor Sam, you didn't say how long the service was going to go, so I kind of only have an hour attention span, and so if it goes longer than an hour, like I'm out. Like someone's doing this guest speaker, they like preach longer, so like that's cool. If everyone else, that kind of Friday night service, that's for them. That's not really for me, because that would make me uncomfortable. Oh, but Pastor Sam, like if I come on Friday night, are people going to lay hands on me? Because, like, I don't like the touchy thing. You know, like, no touchy. Like, hands off. You know, like, I just don't know. I don't know. Like, what's going to, I don't know. I might get weird. I don't know. Am I going to have to stand for any amount of time? Because your chairs are really comfy, and I like to sit. I prefer to sit. Can I sit? Can I sit, Pastor Sam? I don't know. If I could do everything my way, the way I like, and if I could totally control the situation, maybe then I'd give up a Friday night. But let's be honest, it's kind of one of the last weekends we can take the boat out and be outside, so I don't really want to be inside for a revival service. And yet we go, but God, he says he's a good giver, and he wants to give his presence to those who ask, but we're not even willing to give him a Friday night because of the comfortability. We're not willing to get uncomfortable. But imagine the example you'd be to your friends, young adults, if you showed up to church on a Friday night instead of the party. Imagine the example you'd be to your family, dad, if you would be the one that said, hey, we're getting in the car and I'm taking you to church. Statistically speaking, it's not you putting them in the car. Statistically speaking, it's moms that get families to church, just so you know. So what if you were the one that said, Friday night, this is what we're doing. We're clearing the calendar. We're doing it. We're going to get uncomfortable. We're going to go after the presence of God because we, as for me and my house, we serve God. And so I'm going to start our school year off in his presence. I'm going to get a word. I'm going to go where he leads. You see, comfort rarely leads to a change of heart. One of the best ways to change things is to get uncomfortable. When you're comfy, come on, when it's all, everything's just right, I love my vibes, okay? Renee and I, you come to our house, we're going to teach you how to do comfort, okay? We love it. There's nothing sinful about it, but right, I want the lighting to be perfect. Don't you ever bring an LED daylight bulb anywhere near my house. I will smash it in your face. Like, get that. That is blue. It's blue. Why do you keep putting those in your house? I've never understood humans less than why we pick those light bulbs. Like, they have the same energy efficiency in LED form that's warm white, always. Have you been to hotels? They're all doing these daylight bulbs. I'm going to start packing bulbs in my backpack to go to, I'm not kidding, guys. You may think I'm dramatic. I'm not. I'm serious. Fluorescent lighting kills the Holy Spirit. That's why there's only warm lighting in here, so the presence of God can move. Come on, this is important. Comfort, we get everything set. But sometimes that's when you're the most comfortable, is when you're probably the least motivated to change. It's in those moments, and God believes in comfort. He teaches to be comfortable. Well, at least one day a week, have a Sabbath, rest. My last Sabbath, it's been so crazy around church. Alex had to go, and his wife had to go have a baby and make everything really hard for me. And it was really frustrating. It was hard for me, church, okay? It's really unfair, Natasha. And I'm just kidding. And it was just a lot of work. And Monday, my last Sabbath, I didn't get out of bed all morning. I just needed to rest. See, I thought I was sick. I just needed to rest. Sometimes we need to get comfortable. I'm not saying it's never, but in the moments of comfort, is that when you change? Is that when you shift, when the plant grows up? No, it's when God begins to actually remove the plant and say, hey, I'm going to provide a worm, and I'm going to provide a wind. And that worm and that wind is actually going to create some discomfort, and it's not because I don't love you. It's because I do love you. And I actually want you to get back on mission with my cause. I want you to stop assuming justice and taking it into your own hands. And I want you to get on board with my justice. I want you to stop on that arc, in that bell curve towards a Pharisaical mindset. And I want you to be reminded, I want to restore the joy of your salvation. That verse is directly combating that curve. It's saying, I need to restore the joy of my salvation. I need to get in the presence of God. I need to be reminded of the passion I had when I was first saved. I need to remember those things. We need to continually be allowing God to remove comfort when needed. And I'll tell you what, this is the most important thing. You either obey and remove the comfort, or he'll have to do it for you. And I found this, that I always have the choice first. Hey, I'm asking you to give this. Oh, you won't give it? Then watch, I'm going to have you have a difficult season in your finances. I'm going to allow you to have a difficult season in your finances. Hey, I want you to sacrifice that time. Oh, you're not going to sacrifice that time? Okay, I'm going to adjust. I'm going to make some things adjust in your calendar. You see, God, he's not the author of pain and suffering. Sin brought that into the world. But I firmly believe that if you study Scripture, you're going to watch a God who he may not author all of the suffering or the discomfort, but he allows it. Right? Job is the perfect example. Honestly, Job and Jonah are two of my favorite Old Testament books because there's so much you can learn that applies to just a life of faith. It's not just an Old Testament story. It actually helps us to understand the human relationship between us and God. And in Job, we understand that God does a whole lot more than kill a plant and blow in a wind. Right? He does a whole lot more than that. He begins to lose everything he had. And what does God do? He allows the enemy in to do this. He says, okay, take away his comfort and watch. He will not reject me. Watch, he's not going to forsake me. Watch, he's going to still give me credit. And in Job chapter 1, verse 21, Job said this, I came naked from my mother's womb, and I will be naked when I leave. The Lord gave me what I had, and the Lord has taken it away. Praise the name of the Lord. Praise the name of the Lord. The Lord gives, and the Lord takes away. We love the giver part, don't we? Oh, we love to get things. And he's a good giver, but what happens when it's taken away? Do we learn the lesson, or do we reject God? Do we listen to what he's speaking and go, oh, I'm going to allow this discomfort to move me towards what his cause is? Honestly, I really believe this, that if we're scared, too scared to suffer, we shouldn't follow Jesus. There's this moment that Jesus gives us this example. He's like, hey, I went and took up my cross. Now I'm asking you to take up yours. I never promised that you would go your whole life without discomfort. In fact, there's going to be moments where I'm going to ask you to get uncomfortable for me, where I'm going to ask you to put people before your possessions, where I'm going to ask you to put people and the heart for other people before your comfort. And the band can come on up as we move towards closing. You see, when our focus begins to shift on what God is doing, we start to be a little more like Jesus. What did Jesus say? Jesus said, I must be about my Father's business. I must be about my Father's business. Church, we affect God's favor by what we focus on. You see, Jonah had this moment of favor with the plant, but he would not adjust his focus. He would not get in alignment with God's business, and so God created discomfort. He allowed discomfort to come in. He provided discomfort so he could get back on track. Jonah was not participating in what God was doing. He chose to get comfortable on the sidelines to watch what God might do. This is a distinct understanding. God's trying to bring salvation to the city of Nineveh, and Jonah is the one, the messenger, the one brought to do it. And here he goes, actually, I'm going to take a sideline seat. I'm going to watch what you do, God. I'm going to watch you. What is your decision? I'm not going to be actively engaged in the city. I'm going to get comfy on the sidelines. I'm going to watch what you're going to do. Church, do you know that there's a lot going on in our world right now? Do you know that God is actively trying to bring healing to cities and hearts and homes and lives? Do you know that the people that you're most against, he's broken for? Do you know he's got a purpose? I pray consistently that I would not lead a church that is about our business and not God's business. We have to be a people that's willing to create space to hear from heaven and go, God, what do you want us to focus on? Who can we help? What can we do? What Ninevehs are you trying to reach right now? Pastor Sam, but it's hopeless. I don't know if you know this, but the world's drifting away from God. It's been doing that for all of mankind. It's never stopped. It's never stopped. But what happens is there's generations of Christians that just start to shift into the Pharisaical mindset over and over again. Study church history. It's all repeat. Listening to a podcast even about American history. And there's this whole section on the roaring 20s and the 1920s. Exact same problems. I was like, this is 2020. What are you talking about? Exact same issues, exact same problems. Why? Because what we're dealing with are human problems. They're not new. And the same truth for Nineveh is true today. The same God of Jonah is your God. And I wonder, are we going to fall prey to being like Jonah, like so many of God's people have done? Notice, by the way, I'm not saying that Jonah's not in heaven. Do you see God reject Jonah? Find where God rejects Jonah and says, you're no longer my prophet, I reject you. God's grace, sometimes I believe God has to show a lot more grace to his people than to the world. Because we should know better. He's like, seriously, I got to teach. Hey, is it right for you to be angry right now? Like, is that your fight? Is it right for you to be angry that deal didn't go the way you wanted, or you didn't make as much this year as you wanted, or is that a just reason? Your discomfort, some of your comforts were stolen. Is that the right reason to be angry? Do you love your comfort more than my cause, which my cause is always people who are far from me? Are you caught up in that, or are you willing to get uncomfortable? And honestly, for me, even as I was preparing this message, it just gave me so much hope. Realizing, wait, hold on. The parts of my life that are uncomfortable, God, what are you trying to teach me? What a difference. Oh, calamities befalling my house. It's all over. I'm not comfy. Okay, but that discomfort, could it motivate change? Could it motivate a new perspective? Could it shift our focus? Could we learn what God is trying to do? Matthew chapter 5. We studied this passage about a year ago as a church, but I want to read just verse 43. Jesus is speaking. You have heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way, look at this, verse 45. This is the answer to the Jonah problem. I really do. I believe this. This is the answer to the tension that we find in the book of Jonah, that we all feel. And if you don't feel it, you do. You're just lying to yourself. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. What is Jesus teaching us? It's not your job to determine justice. God is going to bless who he's going to bless. He's going to love everybody unequivocally. But there are times where we see comfort and discomfort as value. If God gave them comfort, he values them more. If he gave me discomfort, he values me less. Why do we do that? Because the more we pay, the more luxury we get. So we associate comfort with value. But here Jesus is saying, hey, your comfort has nothing to do with God's justice or his value. And when you place justice and value on comfort, you're American, not Christian. For he gives sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. If you love only those who love you, what reward is there for that? Even the world does that. Even the evil does that. Anyone who gets loved wants to return it. That means nothing. But to be a Christian, to be a Christ follower, is always to love Nineveh. To not sit on the sidelines under our plant, pouting with an attitude, waiting for everything just to go to hell in a handbasket. I'm here, and I'm commentating, and I'm letting everybody know. I'm just waiting for it to all fall apart. But I got my comfort, got my savings, got my house, got it all worked out. God's saying, hey, if I need to, I'll remove the comfort. I'll remove it. Do you need me to remove it? Or will you remove it? Will you get out from underneath the plant? Will you get down in Nineveh? And would you actually show up? And would you be there for people? Would you love people? Would you do my work? Because Jonah is a small version of the entire Bible. It's this amazing picture of what the Bible's all about, which is God's love for people, both his people and the people who are yet to choose him. And his people, our role is to go after those who haven't met him yet. It's pretty simple.